DeFi is all the rage right now. From decentralized trading to lending, from asset management to synthetic assets. The ecosystem is growing and growing fast. However, there's one natural barrier that limits that growth, and that is that it remains mostly an Ethereum-based ecosystem. Nearly all the DeFi dApps today are built on the protocol, which naturally limits the amount of crypto capital that can be allocated to it. There are literally billions of dollars locked into other ecosystems which cannot be used in the DeFi space. Well, that was until REN came along. This is your crypto guy, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at REN and their revolutionary renVM. I'll also give you a step-by-step guide as to how to use this virtual machine, as well as some top tips you need to know. And yes, I do have a new price prediction for REN, so be sure to stick around for that. Before we get cracking, some legal fluff. Guy ain't no financial guy. I am merely a YouTuber who loves crypto and produces educational videos. I therefore encourage you to speak to your financial advisor before making any moves in the crypto space. And for those of you who are just stopping by, welcome to my crypto world. I regularly release coin reviews, analysis, and guides just like this. So, if that sounds like something that you can get value from, then be sure to hit up that subscribe button. You may also want to turn on notifications to get plugged into the YouTube matrix. Alrighty, you ready to rumble with REN? Now, for those of you who've been following this channel for some time, you will have seen my previous video on REN in December of last year. Since that time, the project has progressed in leaps and bounds. This has also been reflected in the REN token price, which has more than 5 times since then. Well positioned for that DeFi revolution. Anyways, before we can take a look at what REN has been up to, you need a quick overview of what REN actually is. Quite simply, REN is a decentralized interoperability protocol that's trying to bring together different blockchain ecosystems. More specifically, they're developing a solution whereby you can transfer value from one blockchain to the other. It's a unique solution to cross-chain value transfer that we've not seen before. It does not create synthetic tokens or wrap tokens. You are merely transferring liquidity from one ecosystem to another with your existing smart contracts. This REN virtual machine is a pretty impressive piece of kit that's able to transfer that value from the Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Zcash ecosystem. You can lock these assets in the renVM, and you will be able to mint ERC20 variants one for one that can be used in dApps on the Ethereum blockchain. This virtual machine has been over a year in development and was finally released on the mainnet in May of this year. The final product is really quite impressive, so it needs to be looked at in a bit more depth. So, what exactly is the REN virtual machine? Well, you can think of it as some form of decentralized trustless custodian that holds your assets as they move between the blockchains. You essentially send over an asset like Bitcoin to the VM, which will then mint this Bitcoin into an ERC20 equivalent, in this case, REN Bitcoin. Every REN Bitcoin token is backed by an equivalent Bitcoin in the virtual machine. For those of you who are familiar with the concept of the wrapped Bitcoin, WBTC, it's akin to this. For those of you who don't know what wrapped Bitcoin is, there's a video for that. So technically, while the concept of REN Bitcoin is the same as that of wrapped Bitcoin, there are 3 key differences that make it quite unique and ingenious. Firstly, in the case of WBTC, the physical Bitcoin is kept by a centralized custody at BitGo. They hold the keys to the Bitcoin wallets and hence are the central point of failure. The custodian will mint the equivalent ERC20 wrapped Bitcoin that corresponds to this Bitcoin. They will also burn it when WBTC is sent to them to redeem. With the REN Bitcoin, on the other hand, the Bitcoin is kept on a network of decentralized nodes which are called the Darknodes. These Darknodes are governed entirely by code, and they cannot deny a request to mint REN Bitcoin or redeem Bitcoin. Users can send through as many requests as they want, when they want. It operates just like a, well, machine. It's also trustless. In the case of WBTC, you have to trust that BitGo is storing your keys in a completely secure manner. You have to trust that they will honor a redemption request when you send over some WBTC. It's essentially almost like those fiat-backed stablecoins such as Paxos or USDC, etc. Technically, they can deny the option to cash out. Over at the renVM, on the other hand, because it's governed by code, it is trustless. There is no body or entity that can stop you from minting or redeeming. The Bitcoin is also kept using an ultra-secure multi-party computation algorithm. Exactly how the renVM is able to keep the keys secure is beyond the scope of this video. But it's based on a cryptographic principle called Shamir's secret sharing. All you need to know about this is that the private keys that are used within the renVM are completely secret and are even hidden from the nodes themselves. Pretty damn impressive if you ask me. Anyways, something else that's pretty neat about the renVM is that it can be integrated into other DeFi dApps and protocols. This basically means that these dApps can open up a sea of liquidity for their network from the Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash or Zcash ecosystems by integrating the renVM. What's also pretty slick about this is that it can be a completely back-end operation. Users of the dApp may not even know that they're using the renVM to facilitate an operation. A case in point could be a DEX that trades Bitcoin for Ethereum. You merely see your Bitcoin being converted to Ethereum, but what you don't know is that behind the scenes it's using the renVM to convert it, first into renBitcoin and then into ETH. There is actually a perfect example of this called WBTC Cafe, which I'll cover in a bit. Oh, and one of the final things that I really love about the renVM is that it does not have to do KYC on me. It's a decentralized network of nodes programmed to do whatever I say. It doesn't need to see an ID, and I can send it as much as I damn well want. Ain't that a beaut? The same thing can't be said about wrapped Bitcoin. I go into it in more detail in my video on WBTC, but in that system you have what are called merchants who conduct KYC on those looking to either mint or redeem their Bitcoin. So that's a rough overview of how the renVM system works. It's also important to point out that the example that I used was for renBitcoin, but you can also do the same for Bitcoin Cash and Zcash with renBCH and renZEC. Anyways, the renVM has been live for about a month now, and already there is over $10 million that's been locked up in it. The bulk of this is in Bitcoin, but it really is some quite impressive growth. Okay, so it's no secret that I'm a fan of the renVM, but I'm also optimistic for the potential it has to really supercharge the DeFi space. So let's dive into that. One of the major benefits that the renVM will be able to bring to the Ethereum network and the DeFi sector is liquidity, literally billions of it. You see, currently there's a lot of idle Bitcoin sitting around. This Bitcoin is being hodled in wallets and not being deployed for anything, not earning a return, and not being used to run any sort of applications. However, with the renVM, there is now a completely fluid value exchange bridge that these Bitcoin hodlers can use in order to transition their Bitcoin into ERC20 variants. These can then be sent to decentralized applications to complete a whole host of functions. Things like borrowing, lending, portfolio management, trading, the list goes on. In fact, for those who've seen my video on yield farming, they'll have noticed that I'm also using my own renBitcoin to supply liquidity to a SUSD pool. This means that my ERC20 Bitcoin is earning me a return rather than just sitting in a wallet in the hope of a moon someday. Of course, you could also get the same result if you wanted to send your renBitcoin over to a lending pool, etc. So this liquidity is great for the DeFi ecosystem, as it means that there are more users of these dApps. It means that there are larger pools to facilitate lending and trading. It means that there's more fluidity between these dApps. And this is also long-term positive for Ethereum. Increased network demand on the Ethereum blockchain means that the value of the protocol is bound to increase. This is one of the reasons why Ethereum makes up such a large portion of my portfolio after Bitcoin. So this all sounds well and good, but how do you go about using the renVM? Well, it's actually pretty damn simple, so let's take a look at it. In order to mint renBitcoin, renBitcoin Cash, or renZEC, you'll have to head on over to the REN bridge and connect to it with a Web 3.0 wallet like MetaMask. Once that's done, you're ready to mint your tokens. I'm going to be minting some REN Bitcoin in this example. So I'll decide on how much Bitcoin I would like to mint. Once that's done, I'll hit Next, and that will take me to this overview. As you can see, you'll have to pay a network fee and a renVM fee. The latter fee is a fee that's paid to the Darknode operators. More on that in a bit. If I'm okay with those fees that are being charged, I can hit Confirm. This will then pull up a Bitcoin address that corresponds to this transaction. You'll need to send your Bitcoin to this address so that it can be locked with the Darknodes. You want to be doubly certain that if you're going to be sending your Bitcoin over to the renVM, that you send the correct amount. Once that's done, it will take some time for the transaction to confirm on the Bitcoin blockchain. renVM requires 6 confirmations before it can start the process of minting the corresponding REN Bitcoin. Once all of the confirmations are complete, you can then submit the transaction to the Ethereum blockchain. You'll need to confirm it on your MetaMask, which will then begin that process. Finally, you'll see this confirmation screen with the deposit received notification. I have REN Bitcoin in my wallet. Pretty neat, right? Oh, and if I want to redeem these tokens for Bitcoin, I can do that just as easily over here. All of this REN Bitcoin will be converted to Bitcoin and sent to an address I present. Now, while the renVM is no doubt quite impressive, there is one slight drawback to using REN Bitcoin. That is that it is not nearly as liquid as the likes of wrapped Bitcoin. Here you can see all of the markets where you can trade wrapped Bitcoin. Hence, there are some benefits to using that WBTC, but of course we don't want to have to complete KYC or have to rely on those merchants. This is where WBTC Cafe comes in. As mentioned, this is a tool that uses the renVM as an intermediary in order to trustlessly convert your Bitcoin into wrapped Bitcoin. It basically takes your Bitcoin, converts it into REN Bitcoin, and then sends it to the Curve liquidity pool to instantly convert it to wrapped Bitcoin with low slippage. Pretty damn sweet if you ask me. To give you an example of how easy it is, here is the previous way that people were able to convert wrapped Bitcoin. And here is the example using WBTC Cafe. 4 steps with no KYC as compared to 10 that would be required over at WBTC. It's also pretty damn simple on the Bitcoin conversion. You can send your wrapped Bitcoin over to the cafe and they will use the same pool to convert into REN Bitcoin. After that, it'll be sent over to the renVM and converted back into Bitcoin. Now, while this does sound great, you should take care when using it. It's still in beta stages and I would not send large amounts of Bitcoin to start with. Anyways, I want to move on to another really important component of the REN ecosystem, and that is of course their REN token and the Darknodes. These do, after all, power the renVM. Now, the REN token is an ERC20 token that was sold in a private and crowd sale that took place back in 2018. They were originally called the Republic Protocol, and they wanted to build a dark pool decentralized exchange protocol. The original use cases for these REN tokens was to pay for transaction and computation fees in the protocol. It was also to be used as a bond by those who were running the Darknodes. However, last year the project went through a name change and focused more on the idea of a DeFi interoperability protocol. Now the REN token's main use case will be as a bond in order to operate a Darknode. The bond that's required in order to provide Darknode services is 100,000 REN, which at latest prices implies about $15,000. You can basically think of this as akin to running a masternode or validator node on some other proof-of-stake blockchain. Now, while that may seem like a fair chunk of change, it is less on a dollar basis than some other well-known blockchains. For example, Tezos requires 8,000 XTZ to run a Baker node, about $18,000, and Dash needs 1,000 coins, which is $66,000 at latest prices. Of course, it will be more than the 32 ETH that will be required to run a validator node when Ethereum 2.0 launches, so just consider that. Anyways, these Darknodes will run the renVM and they will get the fees that are generated in order to facilitate the exchanges. This will be paid in the currency that's being converted. So if we look back at our example of the Bitcoin conversion, those fees were paid in Bitcoin. If we were to have converted back into Bitcoin from REN Bitcoin, they would have been paid in ETH. Now, there are pros and cons to this, and they both revolve around the REN ERC20 utility token. On the one hand, this eliminates a particular use case for the REN token. If all fees are paid in the transacting currency, there's no use of the REN token apart from bonding. On the flip side though, this does encourage more users to run darknodes. If you know that you'll be earning fees in a more popular cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Zcash, etc., then you're more likely to want to do it. This increases the number of participants in the REN ecosystem. The more darknode operators there are, the more secure and scalable the renVM and the more transactions that can be processed through it. So in a nutshell, the more people there are running the darknodes, the more valuable the renVM and consequently the more valuable the REN ecosystem. This then comes to the very important question around the impact and potential for the REN token. Well, currently the only use case that there is for the token is to be used as a bond to run those darknodes on the renVM. Hence, there is a demand to buy REN in order to run these. However, once these REN are bought to be bonded into the darknode, then they're taken off the market. This restricts their broader supply. If you head on over to the darknode stats on the renVM, you'll see that there are currently 969 darknodes registered. This implies that about 10% of all REN in circulation is bonded in these darknodes. So, let's look at it from a tokenomics perspective. If the renVM really does become a highly successful interoperability protocol, there will be a demand to run a darknode. The node operators would want to get a slice of those trading fees. However, they will need to get their hands on some of those REN tokens in order to operate this. This leads to an increased demand for REN tokens, which, holding all else equal, leads to an increased price. But of course, we also have to think about the supply side. You have all those REN tokens that are going to be locked in as bond. It's also worth pointing out that the REN token supply is capped at 1 billion tokens. There will be no more minted. This naturally means that the more REN that's taken off the market, the less that there will be to go around. As the amount of REN bonded starts to increase, less REN is available to operate a darknode, which means that more people are willing to pay a higher price to operate those nodes. All things equal, this leads to an increase in the price. Indeed, if you've been following the price of REN over the past few months, it's been heading in one direction. It's no coincidence that this corresponded with the release of the renVM and the introduction of darknode staking. Yes, there may have been some general optimism, but there's an underlying demand for these tokens. The important question is whether the lack of demand as a transactional medium in renVM is offset from the increasing demand for dark node bonding. Now, I happen to think so, but you will have to come to your own conclusions on that one. So that's my overview of REN, but it's now time to start wrapping things up. When the Republic Protocol completed their ICO back in 2018, I knew that it had great potential. They had a strong team, compelling technology, and strong backers. I have kept covering the project since, and it has been consistently meeting development deadlines and goals. The release of the renVM on mainnet was a pretty monumental moment that has well positioned the REN project to take full advantage of the DeFi revolution. By providing a secure and decentralized bridge between two different ecosystems, REN is able to capture all of the cross-chain demand that may exist. Moreover, it's perhaps one of the easiest methods to transfer value from one ecosystem to the other. No need for KYC checks and multiple steps involving merchants and custodians. Just a simple transaction in with your desired currency out. There's also great potential for the renVM not only to be used in other dApps and protocols, but also to supercharge the Ethereum ecosystem. It's providing for a sea of liquidity in the Bitcoin space to port over to Ethereum. All of this demand to use the renVM will mean more opportunities for dark node operators and hence more demand to bond it. This then means more demand for REN and a higher price. Speaking of that price, I would be surprised if REN was not above 5 cents by the end of the year. Now, of course, I need to point out there are risks. Firstly, the REN bridge is still in beta. It's only been live for a bit more than a month. One cannot be 100% certain that there are no potential vulnerabilities in the code. Given some of the recent DeFi exploits, this is an ever-present risk that all crypto users need to know about. I also think that REN is a big bet on the potential success of DeFi in general. You have to believe that DeFi really will become the new financial paradigm for REN to successfully ride those waves. Is this likely? Well, I leave you to be the judge of that. And that's it, my friends, my overview of REN and the renVM. But now I need to hear from you, of course. What are your thoughts on REN? And do you have any questions for me? Please fire them into the comments. Also, if you got value from this video, then let it be known. Smash up that like button and don't forget to subscribe. There are a number of hot coins that I will be exploring very soon. Oh, you thought that was all of it? Sadly not. You see, these videos are only just scratching the surface when it comes to all the info I have to share. 20 minutes just ain't enough time to fully elucidate my thoughts. That is the prime reason that I started my weekly newsletter. It's basically my take on the latest trends and topics. I also share some secret tips that you don't want to miss. Wanna join? Well, don't delay. Head on over to the description. There is a link to my sign-up form. All you need to do is submit your email and hit submit. Click the verification link sent to you and hey presto, you are a Coin Bureau insider. Oh, and I hate spam more than anyone, so you won't be getting any from me. I'll see you all next time.